Hello, podcast, and we're looking at week 5 of the NFL season today. Katie Mox and Will Brinson here, joined by Sportsline's finest, RJ White and Alex Selelnick, aka Propstarz. If you like winning picks, make sure you sign up at sportsline.com and use the code PICK to get your first month for $1. And RJ, something special is going on the site.
Yeah, we just released this. You can now view money percentages on money splits on bets on each side of the spread total and money line for all the big 6 sports. When you go there, any user can go and see the ticket percentage under public, and see how many tickets are on each side. But now subscribers are going to be able to compare that to the money percentage to kind of see where their sharps are leaning, where the disconnect happens, and make them better informed before they go and make their bets.
I love that. I always love to see the splits and where the money is and what the sharps are doing. Last episode in the feed had Brinson, Brady, and Leger breaking down the tush push and why it seems only the Eagles can get it right, and also discussing the returns of Jonathan Taylor and Cooper Kupp. Check it out on our YouTube channel and anywhere that you get your podcasts. Week 4 was another week hovering around 500 for the crew here. Once again, our records are pretty dead center. I went 2-2. Brinson went 3-2. RJ 2-4. Propstars 2-2. But he was so close to going into his Black Jury Judy over 52.5 receiving yards. Prop going into the black. Sorry. All right. How are we feeling about last week?
I'd just like to point out while it's still happening that there's only one of us who's above 500. And
yes,
that person is me.
Yes.
And I will continue to point that out as long as it continues to happen, because it is an unusual circumstance. RJ knows it won't last forever. Like, there's a decent chance that RJ, and what's weird is, like, I keep going like at 500 or below 500 on my Coach First Brinson picks on CBS Sports Network.
Yeah.
And I keep going like at or below 500 on my CBSSports.com expert picks for the full slate. But I mean, I'm somehow like 3 games above 500 with my best bets, which is highly unusual. I have like 7 of them this week, which means I'm definitely due to crash and burn, but I don't care.
As of right now, you are above 500, 12-9. I'm at
the only one who's above 500, Catherine.
Okay, fine. Yes, the only one, Brinson. You're the only one. It is you alone at the top of the board here at 12-9. 13. Obviously, I don't want to be even. I'd like to be in the green, but 13 is my lucky number. It's my birthday number. It's actually my sibling's birthday number as well. So this 13-13. I feel like it's a good omen for me to go over into the green this week. But yeah, to your point, other shows, I'm getting my butt kicked. So you never know. And obviously we know that RJ on Sportsline kills it absolutely every day. Are you still leading on sportsline.com?
I got caught by Mike Tierney. He's a little bit ahead of me right now because I'm put the dumbest pick of my life in on Monday afternoon. I said, oh, this line's gotten out of hand. The Giants cover this. If their coaching staff is good at all, they'll be able to cover this. And it turns out they are not good at all. It was an awful game.
RJ,
I hadn't done that.
You swayed me to the Seahawks all off season. You beat their drum, and then it's just a total shock to see you back the Giants at MetLife.
One game they needed it to save their season. It was one game. They had played 2 really, really strong defenses and played a really beat up, half their defense against Seattle with all those injuries. Didn't matter. None of that mattered.
I want the ability to see the full leaderboard. Like, I don't like that we can only see 5 people on that leaderboard. I want to see where I am, so I know kind of like. I think I'm like plus. I mean, I'm like plus, as you might expect, as you can see from because I put all my best bets in, plus 3 units or whatever it is on the season, and I've got 6 picks up on the board.
Oh, for this week.
All right, already put them in. RJ, how do you feel about that?
Are you shaking in your boots, RJ?
I want low clap for doing the bare minimum of my
getting your
RJ.
stuff in. You're getting your stuff in early. Look at you. You're 12-9 leading this show. I mean, it's been years of tutoring you and bringing you up to this point. I'm just a proud father at this point. You're crushing it.
Thank you.
I would also like you to coach him on rapping, because I would like to get Brinson into this rap star situation that's happening on.
I'm not cutting my hair until Sim asked. I'm not cutting my hair until NC State wins the national championship. So I will probably die with these current strands of hair in my.
You're going to be looking like Encino Man. I feel like in a certain amount of time. All right, let's get into the week 5 schedule. Please note that lines or odds are subject to change all the way up until kickoff. We're hitting these lines about 2 p.m. ET on Thursday if you're listening to the audio version at some point throughout the rest of the weekend. So make sure that you check your book before tailing. Let's first start with the early games. The Jags at the Bills, technically, but it's a Tottenham, right?
The Tottenham Hotspur
The Tottenham Hotspur.
If you say the Spurs, you get yelled at by soccer fans. It's the
single.
Hotspur.
Okay, Hotspur. Oh, a Hotspur. That sounds like a medieval torture device.
Or like something like you would step on without wearing flip-flops on your way out to the beach.
A Hotspur.
Yeah. It's like, ah!
It does.
I don't know why that yell was necessary. It probably wasn't.
All right.
Anywho.
Yeah. Bills laying 5.5. This total 48.5. Bills obviously coming off a huge blowout win against the Miami Dolphins. Sorry to Harry, our producer, on that one. I'm sure it still stings a little bit like a hot spur. All right. RJ, you're taking the Bills minus the 5.5 here.
Yeah, Jacksonville coming off a solid win, but it was against a limited offense. Obviously, there's a lot different, game here. Buffalo dominated a team with an elite offense. So they've proven themselves right now. Buffalo's defense is struggling against the run, but Jacksonville's run offense is not playing well. So it's not a matchup that I think they're going to take advantage of. Buffalo's defense, first in interception rate, first in sack rate. This could be a game that Jacksonville offense could revert to what they did in Kansas City, where they're just struggling to get downfield and score points, and they end up throwing up 9 points or something lower than anybody expects in this game. Buffalo, 37 plus points in 3 straight. I don't think the Jacksonville defense is good enough to slow it down. My power ratings have a difference of 7.5 points between these teams. I think this line on a neutral field should be 7, even if you consider Jacksonville gets a little bit of an edge for being there all week and playing there all the time. I don't see why this line isn't 7.
Yeah. I was going to go with the Bills for a best bet, and I agree with you. I think that the 5.5 is too short. Buffalo. The only reason I didn't go with it is that I'm a little concerned about Jacksonville having a major edge in travel here, because they didn't have to go over from London. They went from Wembley Stadium and whatever resort they were staying at near Wembley to Tottenham, the Hotspur, and whatever resort they're staying at there. So and the Bills left, I think today, we're recording this on Thursday, flying to London, doing the red eye thing, land, do a walkthrough on Friday. And so that's a little concerning for me, but I also believe that the Bills are sort of on a mission. That week 1 game really put a bigger chip on their shoulder than they already had that loss to the Jets. They've dominated the last 3 weeks, and they see the Jaguars as a potential competition for the number 1 seed in the AFC. This game it's at 9:30. It's a sleepy Sunday game. It's in London. It's a 5.5 spread. But I think the Bills view this game as a massive game in terms of holding down a fellow AFC competitor. Ultimately, I'm going to take the over 48.5 as a best bet. We saw last year in weeks 4 and 5, I think there were games played at Tottenham. They have that NFL built speed turf basically built, and we saw 45 plus points in both of those games. The total went over in both of those games. I think Jacksonville's got their offense clicking enough where they'll be able to score against Buffalo or be trailing and be forced to throw. Trevor Lawrence could backdoor cover it. So that's the only reason I'm taking the over instead of the Bills here. Prop, you got anything?
I like the over as well, Brinson. I think these offenses are going to be able to move the football on each other. I think the loss of Tre'Davious White for Buffalo is significant, will help Jacksonville's offense, especially through the air there. As far as Buffalo's offense is concerned, just been very impressed with them since that loss, I believe was in week 1. But yeah, just their ability to move the football. They're running the ball very well. They seem to be just really successful, versatile, more versatile than we've seen. They're actually the slowest paced team in football this year, interestingly enough. I was really surprised to see that statistic.
Yeah.
One guy I have my eye on, though, is Gabriel Davis. I've been beating his drum a lot as a post-hype sleeper. I just love the fact that he has 100% route participation, has the deepest average depth of target of any player on the Bills, and you can usually find his prop around 40 yards. To me, that's too low. Just as a position in a Josh Allen-led offense with his role on the team, he can go over that in 1 or 2 receptions. So the Jags are also susceptible to giving up a lot of big plays down the field. So that's someone I have my eye on for sure.
Speaking of London oh, sorry, Katie, you got a best bet on this one? Oh, you do. I'm sorry.
I got 2.
2 best bets. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm riding with RJ on this one, taking the Bills minus the 5.5. And I agree with everything that you said too, Brinson. This is a way more important game for the Bills than maybe it looks with the eye test. But they can hit the over on this one, but I think it's going to be mostly the Bills scoring, because I'm taking Trevor Lawrence under 1.5 touchdown passes through 4 weeks. He's only had 4 passing touchdowns total. He threw for multiple in week 1, and that has been it. I'm not sure this is the week that he gets back to throw in a bunch of touchdowns here, considering the Jags O-line has struggled at protection, and they're up against a mean mean, nasty Bills pass rush. Additionally, Buffalo is the NFL's 4th-ranked pass defense, giving up just 169.5 passing yards per game this season. It's just going to be tough on Lawrence in this matchup. So I like him under the 1.5 passing touchdowns.
All right. Speaking of the Jaguars, the team that last played the Jaguars, the Atlanta Falcons. Atlanta, they're headed home, coming off a London game, hosting the Texans, and they are somewhere between 1 and 2 point favorites. And the line is actually ticking up, which is pretty insane when you think about like the various stats around this. CJ Stroud, Bijan Robinson, first and second in offensive rookie of the year odds at this point. Stroud has the second most passing yards, 1,212 through 4 career games in NFL history, behind only Cam Newton. He's the first rookie in NFL history with 300 plus passing yards and 0 interceptions in any 4-game span. He's the 6th player in NFL history, any type of player, with 300 pass yards and 0 interceptions in the first 4 games of the season. And Houston has won back-to-back games by 20 plus points for the 2nd time in a season in team history. Last did it in 2012. JJ Watt's rookie year, second year, I guess. They've gone 59 straight games without a 20-point win prior to their week 3 win. Desmond Ridder, 30-0 at home, though. And this is where I think this game is a little interesting, right? By the way, the Falcons, 7 or fewer points for the first time since 2021. I think that this is sort of like Buffalo and Miami last week, but on like it's a poor man's version of Buffalo and Miami, where everyone's like, the Falcons are favored. The Falcons are like the Texans should be favored. The Falcons are a much worse team. Desmond Ridder stinks. He's terrible. CJ Stroud's like the best rookie quarterback out there, and Houston's got this great defense, and all those things are probably true. I think the Texans are probably reading their press clippings a little bit. I think they're going to come in here confident, and I think the Falcons, they are a really good team at home. I don't know. I mean, like, you can chalk it up as weird or whatever, but they score, I think it's like 18 more points per game or 14 more, somewhere between 14 and 18 more points per game at home than they do in the road under Desmond Ridder. I'm going to take the Falcons as a best bet because primarily on the principle, RJ, of everyone thinks the Texans should win this game handily.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, when it was +3, it opened +3. The market loved Houston, and then it crashed down around Pick'em. It got back to Atlanta. So I think the market at least thinks Atlanta's going to win the game. And if it gets down to Pick'em, that's who they want to play. Houston's pass offense dominant, like you said, despite the offensive line injuries, 5th in yard per pass with no interceptions. Atlanta's defense, though, 7th in yard per pass, but they are 30th in sack rate. So this is an easier matchup for the offensive line than it was last week, on paper at least. Atlanta's pass game, you quoted the numbers, him at home. I mean, their pass game has no juice. And Houston's defense just shut down a similar pass offense with no juice. My power ratings have us at 3. I'm not in a rush to play Atlanta at -1.5. I think Houston has a large coach advantage and the quarterback edge. And to me, that's just the type of team that can go in and win this game. So I would lean to Houston, but I'm not playing it either way.
I'm taking the Texans team total over 20.5, kind of going back to what I talked about on Monday, fading defenses coming back from traveling abroad. In 2021, post-London opponent team totals were 4-1 to the over. And if you look at last year, now I couldn't figure out what the team, I gotta get in that Slack, in that CBS Sports Research Slack. But if I look at last year, of the 4 European international games, there was the Vikings and the Saints. The Bears were able to put 22 on the Vikings the following week. And this is the Bears, not exactly a great defense there. And the Seahawks were able to put up 32 on the Saints. You look at the Giants and Packers when they came back, Giants gave up 20 to the Ravens, 27 was what the Packers gave up to the Jets. You can see this here, of all of the things that came back, every single team was at least the teams coming back's opponents were able to put up at least 20 points on all of them. And you look at the way that this offense has been clicking, all of those stats that you read off at the top here about CJ Stroud, they've scored at least 20 in all of their games so far. So give me the Texans over the 20.5, just fading the Falcons defense here.
Prop, anything for you? A little more Bijan love?
More Bijan love. His yards are actually really high this week. Brinson, 79.5. It's as high as he's been all year. I think Desmond Ridder should be thanking his lucky stars that he's playing the Houston Texans defense this week. Because I think if this was a tougher defense, this could potentially be the end of the Desmond Ridder era. I think we could see the switch to Taylor Heineke if Ridder struggles again. Obviously, only generating 7 points last week against Jacksonville's defense. Unacceptable when we're looking at Kyle Pitts, Drake London, Bijan Robinson. I do think the Falcons are going to be able to run the ball successfully here. I think it's going to be a heavy dose of Bijan, which should keep things okay for Ritter, who should be protected by Bijan.
All right, Panthers at Detroit Lions. First double-digit spread we've got to. Lions are laying 10, minus 480 or 490 now on the money line. This total 44 and a half. Brinson, you, at the beginning of the season, you were all about the Panthers.
Yes.
Have we flipped?
We have flipped. This line, RJ actually got it in on SportsLine at minus 8.5, which is another good example of why you should use promo code PICK. Go to sportsline.com/join, enter promo code PICK. You'll get your first month for $1. And you've already missed, and RJ's like doing well at SportsLine. He's doing as well, but you've already missed any of that cool period RJ had. This is where when RJ can steal Pete's line, when the leaves turn brown, I wear the league crown, which is what Pete used to say, which is just a terrible, it's just like a terrible comment, but Pete would run it back over and over again. The point being is, if you were a SportsLine member and had alerts turned on for RJ's picks, you would have gotten, unlike me, the Lions at minus 8.5. I put the Lions in at minus 10. I don't like losing that 1.5 of value, and I have a feeling that RJ's not going to take that loss of value, but I don't care. You know why? Bryce Young is starting. He's going into a hostile environment. We talked about home field advantage at length on Monday's show. And while home field advantage might not matter much in the NFL, or might not matter as much in the NFL in 2023, it does matter in the Superdome, or the Ford Field. What is Superdome? What am I talking about? Ford Field. Yeah, I don't know. I domes. My head's
Thursday.
Thursday.
I just by the time we get to Thursday, it's like,
oh, right, exactly. Yeah, I'm just yelling dome. Yeah. Like those Lions fans, that team is 3-1. They're playing great football. They just beat the snot out of the Packers 10 days ago, so they got extra rest in Lambeau Field. This Lions team, their fans believe they could make it to the Super Bowl because of how the NFC is constructed, maybe even win the damn thing, just because the AFC is kind of a little more wide open than it was. Those fans are going to be loose as a goose when Carolina comes in there. 8 false starts for the Panthers offensive line in Seattle against the 12th man. They're going to have trouble with pass protection. There's no one to push the ball down the field. And the Lions' 2 biggest strengths, their offensive line and their defensive line, are perfectly set up to negate, 1, the Panthers' biggest strength on defense, their defensive line, and 2, to exploit the Panthers' biggest weakness, which is their offensive line. And I think this has major bloodbath potential. And the only way that the Panthers keep it, if the Panthers could lose by 7, if there's a bull caca last second touchdown to Adam Thielen on a 14 play. Yeah, a 2-2 touch. Yeah, right. Puka, I think is the a Puka and a 2-2. And if there's a backdoor touchdown from the Panthers and they cover the 10, so be it. I'll be pretty annoyed. I think the Lions roll in this game.
Yeah, but I don't know how they're getting a backdoor touchdown when they can't get any touchdowns with Bryce Young. They've had two offensive touchdowns in 3 games with him at the quarterback, and that false start fest that you talked about in Seattle, that was with Andy Dalton at quarterback, and they were scoring otherwise. They were actually removing the ball well and competed in that game. If not for all those penalties, they probably would have covered that game. But the Bryce Young experience has been a little bit different. The Carolina defense actually played solid versus Minnesota despite the injuries that they were dealing with, just 14 points allowed defensively. Offense was horrible. Supposedly a good matchup against Minnesota. Minnesota didn't bring as much aggressive pressure as usual because they didn't have to, and it worked out for them. And now Carolina's 31st in yards per pass and 30th in yards per play on offense, while Detroit's defense is 4th in yards per play, dominant in the last 2 weeks against Atlanta and Green Bay. Similarly, limited offenses to some extent. I know Green Bay started to get people back, but their offensive line was a mess in that game. And Carolina's defense, though, 4th in sack rate, could create some havoc. We'll have to watch the injury reports, see if Taylor Decker's out. I think he was limited to start the week, but that could be at least one way they can keep it a low-scoring game and cover here. But their defense, 29th in yards per rush for Carolina. Detroit can win this game with run game and defense. I just don't think Carolina can score very many points in this game based on what we've seen from them. So I'm taking their team total under 16.5. I don't see a way that they break the mold and get 2 touchdowns plus a field goal in this game.
I think this is just a massive mismatch on paper, as Brinson pointed out here. I just have a hard time seeing Carolina scoring the ball on Detroit's defense. Detroit's defense has been solid, particularly their front seven. Their run defense has been really good, which should stifle the only strength of Carolina's offense, which has been their running game. Interested to see if Amon-Ra St. Brown suits up. He's yet to practice this week. I think we'll see a very, very heavy concentrated dose of David Montgomery. Just a ton of carries for him coming off that big career performance against Green Bay. Jameson Williams likely to make his season debut this week. Interested to see him. He'll add an element of speed to the perimeter of Detroit's offense that I think they've been lacking. I was hoping to see Amon-Ra St. Brown and Williams on the field together to have a little glimpse of what this passing offense could look like, but might have to wait a week for that. So yeah, interested to see how this offense looks without Amon-Ra St. Brown though.
Yeah, that would be I think a bit of a problem. But like, I mean, remember what was the line that Dan Campbell said? We're going to drench Jameson Williams with targets in the preseason, and then like he caught like 4 of them. So I think this is like a big redemption spot where bad preseason, coming off the ACL, had the gambling suspension, the NFL lightens it up, and it's like I mean I would have to see what the number is, but if I assume it's plus 250 for any time touchdown.
I'd be curious too. 1 career catch for Jameson Williams so far.
And it was a touchdown.
1 career catch. Yeah, it was. I think it was a big.
It was like a 60-yard touchdown. Yeah, and like I mean, like I burned waiver claims on this guy. Like I think they will try to get him involved, particularly on some deep shots. And you can really, if you can hold up against Carolina's front four, you can get some deep shots off for sure. The Titans.
Quick question for Propstarz though, and Jahmyr Gibbs. I feel like he's been very frustrating for fantasy owners. What is your take on props for Jahmyr Gibbs? Because his usage has kind of been all over the place.
Yeah, inexplicable. I just obviously it's hard to argue with the Lions results. Going 3-1, they've been very successful, played good football. But yeah, it's just puzzling to me taking this guy 12th overall, seemingly building your offense around him in the offseason, or that was a lot of what was coming out of Detroit's camp, and then just his utilization, just really not utilizing him. But besides the game where Montgomery sat out, he's only had 7 rushing attempts per game. I just think he needs to be more involved with the offense. Just going to wait and see until that materializes.
So you're just laying off Jahmyr Gibbs props.
Yep.
Do you think if Amon-Ra St. Brown is ruled out that they go to him more as a runner and just control
split him out in the slot some?
Well, yeah, you throw it to him there some, but I just mean as a runner, like because if Amon-Ra St. Brown's out, I think you're going to want to run the ball 35 to 40 times.
Yeah, right.
But you don't want David Montgomery to run the ball 35 times, so it could be like a 25 to 15 type of split, and Gibbs gets a lot more rushes than we think.
Yeah, I also think it's one where too, like if it's 10-point spread, you get up by double digits, they are going to pound the ball and basically just tee off on Bryce Young and melt the clock. And so like I could see like I'd be a little wary about taking the over. I think this is a good live under spot. If the Lions get a big lead, I think you'll see Dan Campbell feed them. Jameson Williams 2-1 anytime touchdown scorer. You could look at Josh Reynolds too. He had I think when Amon-Ra St. Brown was banged up early in the year, he had a big game in that spot with 2 touchdowns as well. Tennessee Titans. I thought Mike Vrabel was going to be a dog again. What the hell? Titans minus 2.5 on the road. Like, I mean, nobody likes the Titans. Nobody thinks the Titans are interesting. Nobody thinks the Titans are sexy. Nobody wants to watch the Titans. But they're 2-2, and they've looked ugly at times. But it's like if Ryan Tannehill plays well, this team can win. This team can win football games. I was going to blindly take the Titans as a dog for like the 5th straight week.
Because at some point, what is that? The clock is right even a broken clock is
well,
right.
I think Vrabel would be. I think he's 3-1 as an underdog against the spread so far to start the season. So like it's been a good bet. The one game he didn't cover, they got absolutely blown out of the water. But that's neither here nor there. And I was expecting them. I think this line opened at Indy -1 when we were talking about the early odds. I said I like Tennessee, and I'm going to ride it anyway with Tennessee as a 2.5-point favorite on the road. It's not as comfortable as I would like, obviously. But Derrick Henry has 1,287 career rushing yards against the Colts. That's 3rd most all time. The Titans have won 5 straight meetings against the Colts, a plus 9.4 points per game differential during that streak. Henry has averaged he's averaged 120.2 rush yards per game in that 5-game streak, along with 4 rushing touchdowns. Jonathan Taylor may be back, but has not been good against the Titans run. The Titans are a pass funnel. And so like, I think this is one where if you force Anthony Richardson to throw a bunch, your defense can be opportunistic, can flip the field. I like Tennessee to win this game and to sort of like, if the Bills win and the Titans win and the Falcons beat the Texans, we'd be like, holy crap, 5 weeks into the Titans are in first place in the NFC South or the AFC South, which would be pretty wild.
What's the latest on Jonathan Taylor?
I think he's supposed to go. Yeah, he says he's healthy and ready to play. Okay. I think he was healthy like for most of those 4 weeks, and they were just sort of like throwing him a contractual bone, and now he's just going to play out the season. So if you stashed him in fantasy leagues and you're 3-1, let's go. Let's. Oh, that's right. You got him on your CMC auction league team with the experts, right?
I do. Yes.
Very nice. RJ, what do you think about this game?
I think it's great news for me as a fan, who has been like relying on Zach Moss so much because of Nick Chubb injuries and other reasons. And now I got to go back to the well and find something else. This is an interesting line move. You're right. It was Colts favorite. Now Tennessee is wild, 2.5 at some spots, which is kind of crazy. Their offense has been Jekyll and hiding to like a 2-2 record. They've been awful or they've been very good, but they've been pretty good at home and they've been awful on the road. And this game is on the road. Their offense is 30th in sack rate, where Indy's defense is a solid 10th, and they're 9th in yards per rush on Indy. So they seem to be set up well defensively to handle this game. Tennessee's offensive line might actually get improvement, though. We talk about the Jameson Williams injury, the issue with the suspension and coming back. There's also a Titans offensive lineman that was in the same boat that got his suspension reduced, and he's back. He was supposed to be their starting right tackle, but it looks like he probably is just going to provide depth for them because Chris Hubbard's played well. So we'll see how that works out. But Tennessee's offensive line is definitely one that has needed depth. They've been struggling, and it'd be great if they get Skoronski back too. So let's watch the injury report and see if he's clear to return here. You talk about the Tennessee's defense being elite versus the run. Anthony Richardson brings such a different element to the run game. It's not a traditional run, attack that you're running up the middle into this really strong front. And if he is widening the field there, I think it opens up some rush lanes for Taylor and for himself, and makes him a little bit tougher to defend. So I think that plays into it here. I like Indy. If they're getting points, I'm actually teasing it up to 8.5 here with another team we'll get into later. My only concern with them, my biggest concern about them, is they played back-to-back overtime games. Their defense has faced 150 plays in these back-to-back games, and they've got to be tired at this point. I know you get a break, you rest up, but we'll see how they're playing in the second half of this game because, if they run out of steam, you can understand it because of how much they've been on the field. And
if they do run out of steam, who might pop off for a big run? Propstarz?
I do indeed, Brinson. Yeah, the big man. I'm backing him this week. I like Derrick Henry. Same thing. It's been the same story with him every season. Just a notorious slow starter. Looked plenty explosive to me last week on the way to 22 carries, 122 yards on that touchdown run. Looked like vintage explosive Derrick Henry. Shucked a couple of tacklers at the line of scrimmage. Outran the defense on the perimeter. Very impressive performance by Henry, who looks plenty healthy with a ton of juice. RJ mentioned Pete Skoronski potentially being back. He practiced in full. That would be a boost to Tennessee's offensive line, which has really struggled. RJ also mentioned the Colts defense being exhausted and banged up. Shaq Leonard, Tyquan Lewis, DeForest Buckner, Kwity Paye have all yet to practice this week. If any of those guys are out for this game, that's a big boon for Derrick Henry as well. Also, we saw last week this Colts defense just didn't hold up well against the run. Ronnie Rivers and Kyron Williams combined for 150 rushing yards against this defense. Brinson, you were mentioning the historical splits against the Colts. 7 of his last 8 games against the Colts, he's gone for 100+ yards. So I love Derrick Henry in this spot. I think he's going to get a big workload, and was certainly encouraged how he looked last week. He looks just as good as ever to me.
What's your number, Propstarz?
75.
75.5. Okay.
All right, I'll tell you who I wouldn't want to be this week, and it's the New York Giants going up against the Dolphins, who certainly are primed for a big bounce back here. They are 10.5-point favorites. This total 47 and a half, actually down. It was 48.5 earlier, so the total has gone. I'm sure it's gone down because nobody expects the Giants to score any points here. I'll start with you on this one, RJ. You were hoping for better things for the Giants last week. This is one where you're not giving them the points.
No, I don't care who comes back. It was just a complete failure across the board. It wasn't one thing where, if they had Saquon Barkley back, it'd be better. Or if they had Andrew Thomas in that game, it'd be better. It was a complete failure up and down from the coaches that we're not adjusting for their limitations. And you can blame injuries all you want, but what Houston's doing with an absolute skeletal offensive line with all their injuries, give them credit and maybe go hire their offensive line coach to be your head coach because of how great a job he's doing, if that's what you need to do it. So I don't know how you fix this team. The beat up Seattle defense, they couldn't do anything against, telegraphing his throws, bad pick six. Miami's offense coming off a bad game in terms of points scored. They're still number one in yards per play, yards per pass, yards per rush by a wide margin. And they ended through the last three drives on Buffalo territory, turnovers on downs. Easily could have been a lot more points in that game. Defense has been inconsistent. They can struggle against good offenses. Luckily for them, they're not playing a good offense this week. Power ratings, I have this line at 12.5. And with these big numbers, you worry about a backdoor cover. I'm not sure the Giants can pull that off after watching their offense. So if you want to play it at the 10.5, I think that's fine. But the time to get it was when it was 10 or even a little bit lower before that Monday game.
Yeah, and I mean the thing about the Dolphins too, and Prop's going to touch on this with a where Alex is going to touch on this with a prop that I also like, and I had this. I had emailed a producer earlier the day before I saw it that I was going to use it for. Not to spoil it, but you can watch it tonight on CBS Sports HQ. We're doing like a live betting segment during the Thursday night show. This is one that just stood out to me. Like when the Dolphins get a lead, and they're going to have a lead because the Giants can't do much. It's also going to be sweltering down there, more than likely in South Beach or near in Fort Lauderdale, I guess, right? It'll be hot, right?
It's hot down here.
Yeah, it's hot down there. I mean, like it's like 80s up here right now. I'm going to be like in the 70s this weekend. It's still going to be hot. They're going to get a lead and they're going to pound the ball. They're going to run the ball and they're going to pop off big runs. Did you know that all 5 of the fastest next-gen stat speeds this season in terms of runs, I guess everybody knows this now, everybody's nodding, are all Dolphins? This team is full of speed. Just like Scarface, this team is loaded with speed. And they're all right, nobody. Okay. Anyway, they're going to run the ball well in the second half, and it's going to result in what, Alex?
Yeah, it's going to result in a big game from Devon Achane. Love this spot for him, Brinson. Over 50.5 rushing yards. Just from an efficiency standpoint, it's been unbelievable to watch this guy. He's averaging over 10 yards per carry over his career, I guess, right? 33 touches, 353 yards, 11.4 yards per carry as well. This Giants defense is absolutely dismal. They're one of 4 defenses that are just equally horrible against the pass as they are against the rush. Bears, Broncos, and the Raiders, and this Giants defense are just absolutely terrible. Bottom 5 in basically every single defensive metric there is. And then Achane actually out-snapped Mostert last week. Was in on 60% of the snaps. Mostert 43% of the snaps. Lost a fumble and was highly inefficient. 7 carries for just 9 yards. So I just think this kid is unbelievable. He's going to be on the field a lot. Wouldn't surprise me if he handled 65% of the touches. It's undeniable when you watch his speed, explosiveness, efficiency, just eye test. Pass, everything pass. Just this kid's incredible.
Yeah, and there's a decent chance he gets there in one rush.
Yep.
Well, that was the thing coming out too. It's like we knew he had this explosiveness, but he didn't seem like pre-profile to be a high volume back. So just because he is performing well, I don't think it necessarily means he's going to start getting, lion's share of targets, start to be looking like, the guy that gets 20 plus touches a game because he just wasn't built like that. And there's some questions about how this. I hope when he scores touchdowns, he has this new celebration of like, say my name, because like, we're trying, dude. You change it every week.
Dude,
it's hard. We're debating it before the show.
Hard. I'm always like Achane.
To pull back the curtain, like I almost was going to go with a different prop for this hit tonight because I know that I'm going to screw up his name. Like I had no problem. I was like Achane, like I've got it, I'm covered. Yeah. Like I don't even blink. And now I'm like, I see it and I like freeze and I have no clue what to do.
Same.
Yeah, so it came out recently within the last week. It's Achane now. And
yeah,
Brinson, I actually think of when you said 4chan, Achane. That's my cue.
4chan, Achane, yeah, which is not a great correlation. But I digress. We've got a massive AFC North matchup coming up. But first, Sunday, it's an NFL on CBS doubleheader with the early games featuring an AFC North matchup between the Ravens and the Steelers. Later, Mahomes and the Chiefs go on the road versus Justin Jefferson and the Vikings. Get set for kickoff beginning at noon Eastern with the NFL Today. We can't wait for Sunday. The NFL is on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus. We'll tell you about that Ravens-Steelers matchup coming up next.
100% awesome.
We make this look good.
100% hilarious. 97% on Rotten Tomatoes.
That's so dope.
And you still haven't watched Ninja Turtles on Paramount Plus yet?
Y'all not as cool as I thought you would.
Oh, no, hey, man. Listen, we were kidding.
Ninja Turtles is effortlessly cool and crushes for absolutely every age.
Jeez, Dad, you really went buck wild there.
Ninja Turtles, rated PG, now streaming on Paramount Plus.
The Baltimore Ravens headed to Pittsburgh, where they will their defense will face off against a very angry offensive coordinator in Matt Canada, who is actually blaming and yelling about CBS Sports incorrectly, erroneously, erroneous, suggesting that so apparently on the broadcast of the Texans and Steelers game, and I don't think it's on CBS, great game. Everyone's psyched for the game, but at one point, fairly early in the game, we probably all switched to a different game because it was a blowout. Apparently, whoever was on the call said that Matt Canada told them in their production meetings that his offense was not built to come back against teams. Matt Canada today told reporters that he was really mad at CBS because that's not what he meant. He just meant it just wasn't built to come back against the 49ers. It's like, okay, Matt, here's an idea. Why don't your offense stop stinking across the board? Because you know what? It wasn't that great when you were here in Raleigh at NC State. There's 3 former NC State coaching staff members from the 2013 team. They didn't win a single conference game, 0-8 or 0-9, whatever it was, on the Pittsburgh Steelers offensive staff. They have gone 39 straight games without recording over 400 yards. In that time frame, there have been 295 other instances where NFL teams recorded 400 games. It's an outrageous streak. And naturally, I'm going to take the Steelers +4. Well, actually 4.5. I think we're getting 4.5 here. That was the latest line producer Harry tossed up there. Does it make sense to take the Steelers? Hell no. Should the Ravens blow them out? Probably. But this is a blood battle, a must-win game for the Steelers. It's a road divisional game in the AFC North, and it usually ends up being a field goal. I also think the Steelers defense is going to be pretty ticked off about getting lit up by C.J. Stroud, and I think that they will be able to get after Lamar Jackson to a degree and limit this rushing attack and force the Ravens to try and throw. I will take the Steelers +4.5, RJ.
Wow.
And I'm also on best bet Steelers +4.5. What could go wrong here? But Pittsburgh is 5-1 straight up against Baltimore in the last 3 years, but they were dogs in 4 of those games. So it's not like they were expected to go out and win all these games. And they were 5-1 straight up. And the one loss was by 2 points. They are competitive against Baltimore. For whatever reason, Matt Canada has solved the Ravens puzzle here. And he has 30 other NFL puzzles to solve moving on from this point.
31, really, if you count the Steelers.
Yeah. So I mean, it looks like Kenny Pickett might play in this game, dealing with a bone bruise. It seemed like it initially was going to be a multi-week injury. Now he's acting like he's going to play. I think with the bye next week, they're better just saying, look, sit down. It's a long season. You're not going to lose your job for one game. Don't worry. Let's get the healthy Trubisky in there. Because Derek Carr showed us, what happens when you roll a quarterback out there at less than 100% and just looked awful in that game. So I think they need Trubisky in there. Feel a lot better about this if I knew Trubisky would start. I'm just projecting him to start, which is why I'm taking it. Baltimore's defense first in yards per play. But who have they played? They played C.J. Stroud, who actually looks really good, but it was his debut on the road in the NFL.
Yep.
And they played a hurt Joe Burrow. And then they played Gardner Minshew. Then they played Dorian Thompson-Robinson, 2 backup quarterbacks in a row. So maybe they'll get a third one here. So it's not like I'm saying, oh, this Pittsburgh offense is rolling. They can come in and beat an overhyped defense because this profiles as the team that Baltimore's having success against. But it's not like they're having a ton of success. I mean, that Burrow game was a 3-point game. They lost to Minshew. So there are these games here that they're not just blowing out these teams left and right. I think the perception of Baltimore is a little bit higher than their play at this point. So I'm just going to rely on the history and say, even though the matchup says it's going to be a blowout with these Steelers not playing well and the injury, they've just played the Ravens too well that I like to back them at +4.5.
All right, next up, the Saints and the Patriots. This game is virtual pick'em. Saints laying 1 point, total very low at 40 with that under.
Down to 39.5. And actually,
down to 39.5.
I think it's somebody told me it's at 39 as well in some spots.
Yeah. Well, now, that's flipped now over. The over is now juiced to minus 112. You talked about taking Derek Carr out there with the injury and what the offense has looked like for the Saints. Of course, New England just got absolutely stuffed by the Cowboys. Mac Jones couldn't get anything going. But RJ, you like the dogs here.
Yeah, this is not much easier of a matchup on paper for the New England offense because the New Orleans defense is just one spot below Dallas in yards per play in the rankings there. But their sack rate is mediocre, and we know that Dallas knows how to get some pass rush there. So I think not having to worry as much about the pass rush probably helps Mac Jones here. The New Orleans offense predictably struggled playing hurt Carr. We'll see if I assume he got through that game. He's going to play in this game. He probably is going to be better. But a healthy Derek Carr has not been great this year either. I mean, the New Orleans offense, 29th in yards per play, 32nd in the red zone. They cannot finish drives to save their lives, cannot figure out how to get touchdowns. And this New England defense is going to be a lot easier test for them. They've faced some tough tests so far with these San Francisco or the Philly games and coming off this Dallas game, Miami. This is not anything like that, So biggest worry here is the New England defense injuries to Judon and Christian Gonzalez. They're out long-term, maybe both for the year. But New England can figure that out. I mean, they just brought back J.C. Jackson. We'll see if he immediately flips the switch and has a good game here. I think you fire Brandon Staley on the spot before he comes out of the bye and just say, look, this was our big money, signing. You couldn't get anything working with him. You're supposed to be a defensive guy.
That's right.
So I think New England wins this game. I'm happy to fade. This was clearly an overreaction to a bad Mac Jones game. I think they'll turn it around here in a little bit easier matchup.
Yeah, so let's look at who the Saints have played. And I mean, I am really down on the Saints and have been since the preseason. And I understand that my disdain for Derek Carr is widely known, and that I'm biased against the entire Carr family. Don't care. The Saints, and they look. I don't think about them until I have to talk about it once a week. But Saints beat the Titans 16-15. The Saints beat the Panthers 20-17. The Saints lost to the Packers 17-18, and the Saints lost to the Buccaneers 9-26. Those are 4 horrendous offensive outbursts, and they're not against good defenses or good teams. In fact, I think you can pretty easily make the case that there's nothing to really like about the Saints. And if you go and really dive into this Buccaneers game, and I know we talked about it a little on Monday, Derek Carr, why he played in this game is a mystery. In that game last week is a mystery to me. 23 of 37 for 127 yards. That's 3.4 yards per attempt. Alvin Kamara had 13 catches. 13 catches for 33 yards.
I don't even understand how that's possible.
The previous record for fewest receiving yards, as Breach pointed out, on 13 or more catches was 71. He sliced it in half. It's crazy. How do you even do that? And I think that it's very likely Derek Carr wants to keep playing because he is extremely concerned that he'll end up losing his job to Jameis Winston. I think he doesn't want to step off the field. And this New England offense or defense is probably the best one that they've faced so far. They just haven't faced that many good defenses. I also think when you look at the Patriots and you sort of take, I know they're 1-3 and they haven't looked good on offense, but they've played the Eagles, they played the Dolphins, they played the Jets, and they played the Cowboys. Those are 4 good defenses, or at least 4 above average defenses, and maybe 3 really good defenses. The Patriots, to me, at 1-3 are in a much better position moving forward, even in a stronger conference, than the Saints are in a weaker conference. The wrong team is favored here. I'm going to take the under 40. I want the Patriots too as a best bet, honestly. But I feel like that's too many best bets for me this week. So prop anything for you?
You don't want to ruin your
8 going 8 or 10, 9, 8 or 9 best bets in week 5 seems insane.
Well, I mean, you just worried about your record?
No. It's just no. I mean, I'll add on the Patriots. I think they're going to win the game 17-6.
Nothing from me in this game. I think it's going to be really low scoring. I like the underlook there, Brinson, as well. I prefer to see Jameis Winston at quarterback for this New Orleans Saints team. It's really tough. beating the drum for Chris Olave, who I still think is one of the best receivers in the NFL. But Carr's just inability to throw down the field, especially when he's less than 100%, is just glaring, really holding back Olave's upside here. I do think he bounces back in this matchup, but if Carr's not 100%, it should be ugly again. So staying away as of any props are concerned for the moment.
Okay, you got anything on there?
No.
We probably spent way too long with that crap game.
Yeah,
Anyway.
I got nothing on that one. I want nothing to do with it.
So I go head to head with Coach every week on these. It's all the primetime games. We have to pick one 1 o'clock game and one 4 o'clock game. And I just didn't really love the 4 o'clock window and I was a little worried about this. And somehow we're head to head on this. Joe Burrow was asked at media availability on Wednesday, I think. He said, "Hey, Joe, do you feel like this is a must-win game in the locker?" And they couldn't get locker room out. The reporter couldn't. Before Joe Burrow goes, "Yes, absolutely." And when you hear Joe Burrow say, like he came back afterwards and said that the Rams Week 3 game was a must-win game for the Bengals, and it was. They're 0-2. He was hurt. They really needed to win. They're now 1-3. He's hurt, and they got these 2 games against Arizona and Seattle before their bye, and then after the bye, it's San Francisco and Buffalo.
Yeah,
like you cannot go. You really can't go 1-3 in those games, and you definitely can't go 0-4 in those games. Season's over. Shut down Burrow for sure. They need to win these next 2 games, and it starts with at Arizona. I'm going to lay the 3 with Cincinnati as a best bet. I don't feel great about it considering how frisky the Cardinals have been, but I think this is a game where the Bengals defense, like they did against Los Angeles, on that Monday night game, can come out and just win the game for this team. Cardinals, of course, have been a great underdog all season long. I think their fun little streak. I guess it stopped last week. I think it really stops this week, RJ.
Yeah, they need this win, which is a formula for success. The Giants needed that win against Seattle, and we saw how that worked out.
The Bengals are a Super Bowl contender. The Giants stink.
Yeah, well, Cincinnati is tied for the worst yards per play in the league with the Giants on offense. So they
should I get rid of this best bet?
No, you keep it. I mean, the look ahead was Cincinnati -7. And, when you see that much of a move from that big of a look ahead, you kind of always want to, go against it and fade it and consider it being an overreaction. But this seems fair with their offensive issues. Cannot throw downfield. Arizona's defense 29th in yards per play. And so you would expect, okay, this is where Burrow can get going and can throw downfield and complete some passes. But you would have said that last week about the Tennessee defense, which allows everybody to pass on them. And he couldn't do anything there. So I don't know why this is going to be any different. Arizona's offense 9th in yards per play, 2nd in yards per run, despite facing Dallas and San Francisco. Very, very, surprising stats for them, considering the state of that offense coming into the season and who they have played. Cincy's defense 30th in yards per run. So the formula is there for Arizona's offense to have success. Josh Dobbs is moving around, picking up some yards with his legs. The run game has been going well for them, and it takes some pressure off the pass game. Michael Wilson's starting to emerge a little bit in the pass game as well. I want to fade this big look ahead move like you were doing. I just cannot trust Cincinnati right now. So in the DraftKings Pick'em contest, they always give you a half number. They don't want any ties, and they move this down to 2.5. I think a lot of people are going to be on Cincy -2.5, and I don't think I want to be one of them because I just don't trust them.
All right, moving on. The Eagles are laying 4.5 at the Rams. This is probably likely going to, in terms of home field advantage, which, Emory has a problem with, it's going to be more Philadelphia Eagles fans there than Rams fan. This total, it went down 49.5. It was at 50. And I talked about this on Monday, and I was standing alone, and I am standing alone yet again. I'm taking the points with the Rams here, plus 4.5. Everything that I have seen on the internet says to take the Eagles in this spot. Obviously, the defense is legit. The offense has started to heat up. I still haven't been sold on this offense. They don't look as strong as they did last season. They've kind of squeaked out some pretty narrow wins. I know everyone thinks I'm a hater against the Eagles, but I'm also a hater on the Rams. So there's no haterade going one way or the other here.
80 Mox in the house.
Okay. The Rams have surprised me, right? They're generating a really good offense. 24.5 points per game so far this season has been their average. I know that Stafford is banged up. McVay says that he's a go. Cooper Kupp has been cleared for the practice squad. I think we're waiting to see if he makes an appearance in this game, which obviously that's going to be helpful, especially when you look at someone like Puka, who's likely going to be double teamed a lot. That's going to open up the field a lot for them. I'm hopeful that he plays. RJ, I'm curious to see what Sportsline says in terms of the splits, because when I was looking at it this morning, most of the tickets were on the Eagles, but majority of the money was actually on the Ram side here. I think this has upset all over it. I'm too chicken to take the Rams money line, but I am going to go ahead and take the points here. I found some absolutely meaningless stats that just make me feel better about myself. There's some coaching stats, so I'll go ahead and read those off to you. This season, the Rams are better against the spread than the Eagles are, but the meaningless stat that I wanted to say is McVay is 13-5 after having lost 2 of their 3 games while coaching in LA. Sirianni 0-6 after scoring 25 points or more in 3 straight games while coaching Philly. Those probably amount to nothing, but they, further make me feel better about taking the points here.
Yeah, the splits actually the other way. The money's a lot heavier on the Eagles than the splits have been on the ticket. So it seems like people are taking even Philly there. I like them at -4, which was available here. I'm still taking them as a best bet at -4.5 because I think this line should be. The look ahead was 6, I believe, and I think it probably should be 7. San Francisco was 7 at the Rams, and they should have covered that game. And Philly is in that same tier with San Francisco, maybe slightly under. If you want to, pinch pennies and say San Francisco's been so good, and I'm going to put them a half point above Philly, fine, but that's still around the same tier. Philly's 4-0, feels like they have yet to hit their stride. I think this line moved as a reaction to them struggling to put away the Commanders, but that was really just bad penalties, especially on 3rd down. It seemed like the officials had it out for them in that game, and they outgained Washington by 1.3 yards per play, pretty much dominated them in the game, and it was just those penalties kept them in it. Rams defense faced a decimated Indy offensive line last week. This is going to be a much tougher test, one of the best offensive lines in the league. With that look ahead of -6, it's strange to me with the move. Like I said, it's either people worried about Philly now or just all in on this Rams offense, especially if Cooper Kupp is able to return and you add him to the mix there. But then Matthew Stafford dealing with a hip injury, even if it's something he can play through, we've seen him play through injuries and it really limits his effectiveness in the last few years. So I'd be worried about that too. So I like Philly -4.5. Try to get the 4 if you can. I think that's what we got on Sportsline. But I think the line should be a lot higher.
No, yeah, Rams +4.5.
So I think this is a really fascinating game just from an X's and O's matchup perspective, because I think one of 2 things happens. Either the Rams design this offensive approach and attack, Cooper Kupp's back, they basically run these tiny, short, quick routes across the middle with Puka Nacua, Tutu, and Cooper, and get the ball out really, really, really quickly out of Matthew Stafford's hands, and dink and dunk their way down the field. Stafford doesn't love doing it. McVay hadn't done a great job about designing games like that. Or they don't do that, and the Eagles' defensive line just overwhelms this offensive line. And I'm really worried. I was going to go Rams too, and I'm really worried that it ends up being the Eagles' defensive line doing that. Worth noting, just on the penalty stuff, I read about this for CBSSports.com, and you can go read about it on the site. But short version, on New Heights on the Kelsey podcast, Jason Kelsey said the NFL warned the Eagles ahead of the Commanders game about Landon Dickerson lining up in the neutral zone on the tush push, the brotherly shove plays. And they actually remember on that, there's a 4th and 1, they got flagged for offensive offsides, but they and this is what I read about. They got the wrong guy. It was actually Jason Kelsey's left hand, not Landon Dickerson's right hand. And it looks like when you see it at first, you're like, that's Dickerson's right hand. But Kelsey's like, no, for the tush push, I get in the 4-point stance. Because, a lot of times you see the guys snap the ball with one hand and then you go 3-point stance. You try to, because you want to jump out to block. He does a 4-point stance so he can dig down and get low. And they also, Deron Payne, his hand was in the neutral zone underneath the football on that same play, and the officials didn't flag it. So really just kind of like an interesting note, like, the league is watching and the refs are watching and teams are complaining about it. And it's just something that there's going to be an issue going forward. Okay. I would think.
Yes.
Oh, Propstarz, you got something here. I'm sorry.
I do indeed. Yeah, I'm going to back tight end Dallas Goedert over 33.5 receiving yards. Been a slow start for Goddard, but he's still on the field for basically every single Jalen Hurts drop back. Has an elite target profile, just hasn't resulted in production. Last year, he led all starting tight ends in average depth of target. This year, he's got one of the lowest average depth of target. But all week, Nick Sirianni has been talking about Dallas Goedert's role in this offense, how he's still a big part of this offense. And the Rams defense has been a tight end funnel all season. This is a trend that carried over from last year. So I think we're going to see a healthy amount of targets for Goddard. I believe it's a little bit of the squeaky wheel gets the grease as far as his role in the offense. Targets have been very concentrated to just A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. So I think we see a lot more Goddard at 33.5 yards. So it's a significant discount for him. I'm going to take it here in a good matchup.
Okay, I stand alone on the pod and apparently in the early splits as well, but I'm still taking the 4.5. When we get back, we are going to talk about the late slate of games, including the Chiefs, who are laying 4 against Minnesota. You're watching Pick Six. We'll be right back.
Over a decade of her reign concludes to an icon on and off the field. We thank you, Megan.
Kansas City. Oh, is it you? It's you.
It's me. That's
it's
fine.
you.
My bad. The Kansas City Chiefs.
No, my bad.
It's fine. Kansas City Chiefs have started 3-1, 6 of the last 7 seasons. Patrick Mahomes, unbelievable in September. Not so much in October. 7 losses in the month of October in his career, which is like not really that many, but it's the most. It's like the most in his career of any month. 8 passing touchdowns and 251.5 passing yards per game through 4 games this season, the lowest through his first 4 games of his career. So the Chiefs are winning, but the offense, and like you've heard Travis Kelce talk about this, man, Travis Kelce is in our lives a lot these days.
I'm almost sick of him, which is crazy because I love him and I love them together. But I'm like, every commercial is Travis Kelce, and I'm actually getting sick of it, which I never thought I would say.
Like when it's like there's like a not Travis Kelce commercial, it's a Taylor Swift commercial. Like it's a little bit of an oversaturation.
Yeah, they went real hard on it.
Yeah, we get it. And like the NFL is getting criticized for changing. It's like anyway. The show's running long, so we won't do it. But we'll dive into the whole Swifty thing. But Mahomes 23-0 in his career versus teams that entered the matchup that week. Multiple games below 500, the longest such win streak since 1970. Vikings, of course, are below 500 at 1-3, having picked up their first win on Carolina last week, and now they are 4-point home dogs with a robust total of 52.5. Chiefs getting a little bit of juice here at -115. I barely lean to the Vikings. I don't want to take them. I think I'm taking the Vikings in my picks pool, RJ, but man, I mean, like going against, it just feels like if there's a team that's going to come back and or make this a crazy 3-point game, it's the Vikings, right? Like if somebody's going to backdoor cover, it's them, right?
Yeah, this line opened at 5.5, and I was ready to take Minnesota at that number. It's dropped down to 4 now because everybody has that same thought. The offense is playing very well, and they can get backdoor covers if they need it. At 4, a little bit of a question mark there because we know Kansas City is going to come out and their offense is going to look great in this game if Flores is aggressive at all, because we know that doesn't phase Patrick Mahomes ever. When you get pressure on him and bring aggressiveness, he's just going to pick you apart. He might need his receivers to do a little better job catching passes, but they'll figure it out. He threw some bad picks against the Jets, still had 6.1 yards per play. Minnesota's offense has been better in yards per play on the season, but the Kansas City defense 5th in yards per pass, and Minnesota's defense is surprising 10th in yards per play. But I think that's partly due to the pressure they're bringing. They've been much better against the run as well. So I don't think that's a big, throw out what Pacheco did in that game last week. I don't think that's a big club in the golf bag of the Chiefs offense here. So I agreed with the initial move at -4. I'm going to lean Kansas City. I think that's about as low as the line can get.
All right. Nothing else. No best bets for us in that game. We do have a bunch of best bets, though, in the Jets and the Broncos game. Of course, the both teams now 1-3. The Broncos stealing a win. Nearly fell to 0-4 after. There would be some. Sean Payton ain't going anywhere because he's Sean Payton and he got a ton of money from the Broncos. And it's always going to be a thing where like Russell Wilson gets blamed. But man, you go 0-4 with a loss to the Bears and a bad loss to the Bears. And people are going to talk, especially like we've got rich owners like that. Now both teams 1-3. Jets with a heartbreaking loss to the Chiefs, of course, on Sunday night. Broncos -2 now, was -1.5 with an over under 43.5. RJ, you've actually got, this is the second leg of your teaser.
I'm teasing the Jets up to +8. Interesting about this is, I know, Brinson, you love your narratives. This is narrative AF when you get the Nathaniel Hackett versus Sean Payton game that we've all been looking forward to.
Yeah.
So that'll be, the Jets offense is going to show up and do everything they can to back their guy here in this game and throw out all the stops there. Denver's offense came back and won that game, only 311 yards against a brutalized Chicago defensive backs in their secondary. And they were very quiet in that first half until they got down 28-7, rallied back. Part of that was a fumble return that helped them out here. So these stats keep saying Denver's offense is very good. And I just watch them every week and they just seem too inconsistent. It just does not match up with what I'm seeing with my eyes. But the Jets defense also expected to be elite. They've been inconsistent after high expectations, but they showed up against that solid and played solid against Kansas City, limiting their scoring. Wilson off a solid game too, facing historically bad defense here. The Denver has just been so awful on defense that I think the Jets can score here. Love teasing this number up, relatively low total to get the Jets +8 because I know the backer is going to be wide open no matter who Denver's playing.
Yeah, and RJ mentioned Garrett Wilson. Love this spot for him, going over 58.5 receiving yards, 24 targets the last 2 weeks. If you looked at his target profile, which is his route participation, his air yard share, and target share, it's elite. The problem is it's Zach Wilson throwing Garrett Wilson the football. But we did see some signs of life last week. Now he's playing a historically bad Broncos secondary, 32nd in EPA allowed per dropback, 32nd in coverage grade, 32nd in explosive pass percentage allowed, dropback success percentage as well. I'm talking historically bad. I'm talking probably the best secondary, or worst secondary in NFL history through 4 weeks, and they're extremely vulnerable and susceptible to speed. Speed has killed them all year. Garrett Wilson, one of the fastest receivers in the NFL. So I think this is definitely a winnable matchup for him. I think he's going to get behind this Broncos secondary a couple times. Zach Wilson, obviously not ideal throwing him the football, but showed enough signs of life to me that he can get him the ball. He'll be heavily targeted.
Zach and Garrett Wilson DFS stacks for the Millie Maker?
Yeah, they'll actually be a popular stack probably as far as
no, because everybody's going to be on the Chiefs and Vikings. Like everybody's going to load up on them. And so it's like, dude, if Zach Wilson hits Garrett Wilson for 2 touchdowns, like it ain't that crazy that he could win you $1 million.
I agree. So yeah, love Garrett Wilson. Also like Breece Hall in this matchup. Came out that there's going to be no more limitations on him. Goodbye to Dalvin Cook's 2.5 yards per carry. Breece Hall should be looking at 16 to 18 carries per game moving forward. He's looked great. I expect a healthy dose of him as well. But yeah, I love Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall in this matchup.
I love them too, because give me the Jets money line. I'm taking 2 risky dogs, so I'm either going to look like a zero or a hero after this weekend. But give me all the smoke for the Nathaniel Hackett revenge game. Like you said, RJ, this offense is going to be dialed in and trying to defend their coach. And look, Aaron Rodgers is still floating around now. He took this very personal when Sean Payton attacked Hackett, so he's going to be in everybody's ear, motivating everybody. And like you said, a historically bad secondary. They allowed Justin Fields to throw 4 touchdowns on them. Zach Wilson, I don't know if he's better or worse than Justin Fields is in terms of throwing the ball, but the Jets defense is legit. I think that they can limit Russell Wilson, and I do think this offense might surprise some people, so give me the Jets money line. Now for Sunday Night Football, the game I'm most excited about, and I would say actually most spectators are excited about this one. Cowboys at San Francisco, Niners laying 3.5. It's 4 in some places, so this is a good line here. This total now 45. I'm just going to go. I'm just until it stops hitting, I'm going to keep taking it. 49ers team total over 20 and a half. I also like Dak to throw an interception. Niners are 4-0 to their team total through 4 weeks. They scored at least 30 in each of those games. I know that the last time these two teams saw each other, the Niners only got to 19 points, but it's a little bit different in a divisional round playoff spot than just an in-season game. And I don't think that the Cowboys are going to be able to cause the turnovers that they need in order to win this game. And Dak to throw an interception, that's just kind of a given when he faces the 49ers. RJ, what do you think?
It's 24.5, right? You have over 24.5.
Over 24.5, yeah.
Okay, I think you said 20.5. I just want
sorry, 24.
Yeah,
yeah,
if you're
20.
going 20.5, you're probably getting minus 200 or something. Like that.
24.5, yes.
But yeah, I think you're going to hit that anyway. I mean, San Francisco is dominating on both sides of the ball. Dallas, it seems like they're dominating, 3 dominant wins, but they're being carried by their pass defense, which we know is elite. Their rush defense, 27th against in yards per rush. I think it's going to be another big game from Christian McCaffrey. San Francisco's offense just 14th in sack rate. It's okay. It's not great. So they'll need to keep Brock pretty clean, but if they do, they win this running away. Dallas's offense has averaged 2 touchdowns per game. Their defense and special teams has averaged 1. They're scoring half as much as the offenses. That rate, that 8 touchdowns in 4 games for the offense, that's the same as teams like the Bucks, the Texans, teams at that level. And so that's the level that the Cowboys offense is playing at, because they're 30th in red zone, just like the Saints. They cannot get it done in the red zone, and field goals are not going to be enough to cover against this team. I love San Francisco. I have this line at -5.5 and -3. I was hoping we would get a 3 at some point and people would overreact to Dallas's blowout win, but it looks like it's only going to go up from here. So I'm locking in -3.5 as the best bet on San Francisco.
Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, San Francisco -3.5 at home on Sunday Night Football feels a lot better than Joe Burrow -3 on the road. Like
or my Rams +4.5.
Yeah. I mean, like I agree. I think it's like, I know that like the books don't do this as much anymore because there's so many different places to bet and whatnot. But it's like, this is begging you to take the Cowboys.
Yeah.
Begging you. It's like 3.5. The Cowboys are an elite team. They're going to run the football at Micah Parsons on every play in the first half to make him be a run defender in space against Christian McCaffrey and to take him away from being a pass rusher who's coming after Brock Purdy. And like the Dallas, like RJ said, the pass defense is what has bolstered them, and they are a good defense. Dan Quinn does a great job. It's also like a sneaky Kyle Shanahan, Dan Quinn revenge game, because Kyle Shanahan took all of the heat, all of the smoke for Dan Quinn losing the Super Bowl, the 28-3 Patriots game. And Kyle Shanahan remembers that. Believe me, he remembers that. And I think that he will want to point out that his offense was not the problem, that it was Dan Quinn's defense that was the problem, and that allowed the Patriots to cause that comeback, and that he will not be afraid to run up the score here. And look, the Cowboys still have to think about a lot some of the play calling from the last couple of years in the playoffs. So I like San Francisco here as well. I'm not going to jump on and tail RJ because they accuse me of copying his paper or something. But that was one I had circled as well.
I should be copying you. Look at your record.
I wouldn't do that.
Propstarz, do you have any props for this one?
I have yet to break this game down thoroughly, but I'll have some stuff for it for sure as the weekend progresses.
And by the way, I should also point out
at
sportsline.com, Alex says we'll put up his picks as well. They give like 3 picks up for the Thursday night game. If you're listening or watching before the show, and as an article that I was reading where you broke down every single game with some like sort of insight into usage rates and all that. So sportsline.com/join, use promo code PICK, PICK, get your first month for $1.
I love it. All right, that's going to do it for our show today. Let's take one last look at our bets in the recap. Brinson, you want to read yours off?
Yeah, shout out to producer Harry for this excellent graphical assessment, especially with like, I mean, you talk about a crew that's got a bunch of bets this week. He barely was able to jam it in there. I think Jacksonville Buffalo over 48.5 at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Atlanta -2, Detroit -10, the Titans -2.5, the Steelers +4, the Saints, Patriots under 40, and the Bengals -3. What do you have, Katie?
I'm going to take Buffalo -5.5. Trevor Lawrence under 1.5 passing touchdowns. Houston team total over 20.5, fading the Falcons defense there. This is my risky one. I'm taking the Rams +4.5. Nobody believes but me. I'm also taking the Jets money line and San Francisco's team total over 24.5. And give me a Dak Prescott cookie at Levi Stadium. RJ.
I got Buffalo -5.5 as well. I have a teaser taking Indy +8.5 and the Jets +8 together. Try to get -120 on your teasers, of course. Carolina under 16.5 points on their team total. Pittsburgh +4.5. New England +1. San Francisco -3.5. And then I threw Harry a curveball and added in Philly -4.5 accidentally. I have that as the best bet as well. Wasn't planning on sharing it on the show, but threw it out there.
I inspired it by taking the Rams. You're like, you know what? No, Mox.
And I agree. Tip of the cap to Harry for this graphic. Not easy to fit this many picks on one page. But yeah, I've got Derrick Henry over 75.5 rushing yards. Devon Achane over 50.5 rushing yards. Dallas Goedert over 33.5 receiving yards. Last but not least, Garrett Wilson over 58.5 receiving yards.
All right, that's going to do it for the show. Make sure you join us on Sunday with the Super Friends for their Sunday slate recap. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe on the YouTube page. If you're listening to audio only, download, follow, leave a 5-star review, and tell your friends to listen and watch the pod. Good luck with your bets, everyone. I'll see you Monday, but Brinson will see you Sunday.